Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Jen, and we're doing a Family Health Hub episode today, talking about hormone balancing. So probably perking up a lot of ears out here. Now that I've said that, you want to really pay attention. This is a huge topic. So Dr. Jen, what do you have for us today?
So much, absolutely so much. So being a woman near menopause, I'm not going to give away my hormonal status at this point, but being of so many different ages, from puberty, going through all of that, then childbearing years, and potentially heading into menopause or in menopause, a lot of us go through those changes, and we can make them comfortable, we can make them easy, and these are some easy ways to manage it. So we're going to be talking about hormone changes, not just for women, but also for your teenagers who are living in your home. And for our husbands too. I mean, they do go through some hormonal changes as well. So what I'm giving you is basically an overall nutrient supplementation so that the body can create and make the hormones they need to make, as opposed to doing some sort of hormone replacement therapy, which can increase your risks of cancers, especially long-term. And the organs will start to kind of like, oh, I don't need to make this anymore. If you're getting enough of it, they can shut down. And that's why men who take testosterone have testes that tend to shrivel, if you will.
Yeah.
Our ovaries and adrenals also will have the same kind of impact if we're constantly giving it hormones. Now, I know there's a lot of women out there that are like, oh, the HRT saved my life. And it probably did. I mean, you probably are feeling amazing. You probably feel virile, young, same thing with testosterone injections and stuff. But at the end of the day, if we can start back at the foundation so that your body can use the nutrients to make the right hormones, that tends to be a great foundation, and it's generally healthier. So I think it's a cruel joke that some of us who didn't get pregnant at 18 and 19 years old are living in a household where we're going through menopause, perimenopause, and we have teenagers who are going through puberty. I don't think that's the way this was intended, like thousands of years ago, because I'm pretty sure no one would actually have survived. No, it's not fun. So we'll talk about moms first, because that is, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, right? So there is a product from Standard Process, and it's actually a packet, which I generally shy away from packets because I generally feel that there's something in there, or there's too much of something that the patient doesn't need. So they tend to put this together like, oh, it's kind of a good catch-all, and a lot of times it's not. But I will tell you that Standard Process rocked this concept of these packets. So the first one we're going to talk about is the female endocrine health packets. And the second one is going to be the adrenal health packets, both of which will help balance out hormones gently. And not that they give you hormones, but what they will do is give you the nutrients, the nucleotides, that your body can make the hormones from the nutrition, from feeding those organs properly. I mean, if we have good foundation on our nutrition, our bodies will function very, very well. So the first one is the female endocrine packet. And the box says to take 2, and depending on where you're at, you might want to take 1 twice a day. But a lot of women, I tell, just start with 1, and it can make a huge, huge difference just taking 1 in the morning. And what it contains is black currant seed oil, not black cumin seed or black seed oil, which is becoming very popular on social media and TikToks and stuff like that. But it's actually black currant seed oil. What's interesting is it is gamma linolenic acid. And for whatever reason, it helps really, really, really well with breast tenderness and balancing out hormones. So I find that if we've got a little bit of hormone imbalance with patients, giving some blackcurrant seed oil will kind of balance that out. So it's not that the blackcurrant seed oil does that. It's that the liver takes oils and converts them into precursor hormones and then converts those into the hormones. But you have to have enough fat and good fat, and you have to have enough liver functioning in order for the body to convert and utilize those hormones. So the first thing that's in there is the blackcurrant seed oil. It also has catalin. Catalin is a whole food based multi. And there's some people out there that would say, oh, well, it doesn't say that it's gluten free. No, it doesn't say that it's gluten free, but the amount of gluten in it is so minimal. And people go, no, I can't even have things fried in it. I'm like, I know, I get that. And so for most people, even with major gluten sensitivities, it tends to be safe. So don't mark my words, but it definitely tends to be safe. I did some communicating with Standard Process to find out what the situation was and how much gluten's actually exposed or in it. So it is not technically gluten-free, but your average slice of whole wheat bread contains about 4.8 grams of gluten. Each catalin contains around 0.0125 milligrams of gluten, which means you'd have to consume around 384,000 catalin in order for it to equal the same amount of gluten in one slice of bread.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So talk about trace amounts.
I mean, and beyond trace amounts, you're probably going to get more from having something fried in a fryer at a restaurant with gluten than you would from taking this catalin. So for the people who are nervous out there about it, if you have concerns about that, I'm just letting you know straight off the bat, like that's entirely up to you whether you want to do it or if you think it's going to impact you. I tend not to try to eat gluten very much because it does disrupt my gut quite a bit. And I absolutely can take catalin and don't have any issues with it. So basically, if you took 6 catalin a day, and there's only 2 in this packet, but if you took 6 catalin a day for a year, so 365 days, it means it would take you over 175 years to get the same amount of gluten in one slice of bread.
Oh my gosh.
So if that gives you any kind of indication. So,
Wow.
you know, and the smallest amount of gluten, which has been shown by biopsy to cause damage to a celiac patient, is 0.1 gram per day. That's approximately the same same amount of gluten contained in 1/48 of a slice of bread, or 8,000 catalin. Wow. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not going to say don't do it, but at the end of the day, even if you have gluten sensitivity, it's probably safe for you. But if you feel uncomfortable doing it, obviously don't do it. So, but that will give you at least some actual numbers. So 2 catalin it also has hypothalamus PMG. So the hypothalamus is basically, they call the pituitary the master gland, but it's really the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus tells the pituitary what to do. The pituitary then tells the adrenals, the ovaries, the uterus, and the thyroid what to do. I was like, there's another organ there. So, and that's simplified. Obviously, if I showed you the string, like it would look like a sociopath, like with string art on the wall, right? With pictures and stuff. That's how the hormones try to regulate themselves, which is why so many of us getting into perimenopause and menopause feel like a psycho, right? So because those hormones all have to do something and they're reliant on other organs and things, and these other ones are supposed to do this and this is supposed to do that, and things are getting all over the place. Plus, we're probably just tired of everyone's BS at this point. So that doesn't help us. That doesn't help our plight. So anyway, it has hypothalamus PMG, and the hypothalamus, and the PMG stands for protomorphogen. And what a protomorphogen does is it's got these nucleotides that basically go in and help the body rebuild itself on a cellular level. So it actually repairs these organs. And that's my understanding of it. I'm not, I don't work for a Standard Process. I'm not part of any of that as far as that goes, but that's my understanding of how that works. So generally with that, I kind of call the PMGs, like the protomorphogens, like a construction worker. They show up, they're on site ready to work, but they need materials to help rebuild and support those organs. So that's where the catalin comes in, because it is like a whole food multi, and the blackcurrant seed oil as well. The other product it contains is Simplex F. So that's for female, and Simplex M is for male, but they only have Simplex F in this. So if your husband needs hormone support, Simplex M might be a great idea. Also Minchex, which we'll get into on another episode. But for the women, this is a great product. So it has Simplex F in it, which also contains a bunch of different glandulars, like ovarian tissue. I know there's some other companies out there that are saying, oh, you've got to do primal whatever, and it's got all these organs and liver and all these animal organs. And so Standard Process has been doing this for almost 100 years, because we've known all the way back then that this was important for our bodies to be healthy. So the Simplex F does contain, I believe, like thyroid, adrenal, ovarian tissue, stuff like that. So you can go through and take a look at that as well. But that tends to balance out the hormones tremendously well. Not that it does that. It feeds the body so that the body can manufacture what it needs. And then lastly, tuna omega-3 oil, which is third-party tested. They test everything. In fact, they have, the last I checked, they had 14 PhDs in their lab assaying everything to make sure the cleanliness factor is there, because not every company has the same standards as Standard Process, which is why I use their products so often. And the United States doesn't really have fish oil cleanliness standards either, which is why I generally go for Nordic companies for them, because of how they will third-party test, make sure that things are not going rancid, stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing. Is you go to Walgreens or somewhere like that. I try to keep all the names out of my mouth, but I'm trying. I usually say drugstore. But you go to these places and you pick up the cheap brand that they've got there, and you could be getting anything, because we literally have very lax to no fish oil standards in the United States. So it could be full of heavy metals, it could be full of toxins, and you have no idea. So I try to stick with the brands that I know have the capabilities, have the lab, stuff like that. So doing one of those packets, just tearing it open. And when I was in perimenopause, I literally had packets, like 6 or 7 of them stuffed in my bag, in my purse. And I'd be driving down the road and go, ooh, I didn't take it today, because I could start to feel myself just not being okay. So I would tear it open at a stoplight, take it, and I'd be like, okay, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And, you know, even when I went through PMS when I was younger, it was when I was going through puberty, like I probably would have been diagnosed bipolar if I didn't have the parents that I have. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I look back and I think, holy cow, like if my parents didn't have this information, I probably would have ended up medicated if they weren't the parents that would do everything natural. So because nobody's giving them any other options, right? Yeah. So anyway, the female endocrine packets, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. A lot of women are getting breast tenderness like they did in puberty that they're getting in perimenopause and menopause. And I have found that this helps support the body a lot so that we don't get those kind of symptoms and dryness, which, you know, if you've got kids listening, you know what I'm talking about. That could potentially start. So just being aware of that and taking 1 to 2 of those a day has been super, super helpful. So I would usually just take 1 a day. I started off with 2 because it was so bad. Then I got to 1. And then there were days that I was like, ooh, I might need a second packet. So I took those, and I took them for a good 6 months, and it absolutely helped balance things out. And 0 hot flashes. So that's the other thing that has helped tremendously with that.
That's huge. And I've been on those packets. I've been on the individual supplements within those packets. You put me on Simplex F, hypothalamus PMG, blackcurrant seed. I've been on all those individually at different times, depending on what my body needed.
Well, and the best part is too, is, you know, I'm always very financially money conscious. You know, I have a myriad of dependents. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can do with the highest quality, but I'm also going to make sure that my money stretches as far as it can stretch, you know? So it's interesting. A lot of the companies will put packets together and charge more for the convenience. But Standard Process doesn't do that. It's actually cheaper for them to put it in the packets, not put it in their bottles. And so that has made a difference too. And the convenience of it is like, it's a no-brainer. Even if you take no other supplements, you grab one of those packets, you open it up, you don't even have to think. Yeah. So that is amazing. And I tend to use these for adult women. Sometimes I've used them with teenagers and women who are 18, 19, 20. It just sort of depends, but absolutely for us ladies who are past our childbearing years, and even during childbearing years, this is perfectly safe and healthy to take. So now, and I have, like I said, I have given it to some girls who have really extreme PMS, but the Adrenal Health packets are a lifesaver for those of us who have teenagers. You know, I remember my daughter, she's going to kill me, so hopefully she doesn't watch this, but she, threw herself on the ground one time when she was like 10 or 11 when I asked her to empty the dishwasher. And I was like, geez, that was a little bit overreactive, you know? And my husband looked at me like, what do we do with her? And so we always check to make sure, how much did you sleep? How much water have you had? How much protein have you had? Did you eat recently? Like, before we lose our ever loving minds on them, right? Yeah. And we're pretty strict, stern parents, but we also try not to yell. We try to figure out solutions and figure out things happening and figure out how we would want to be treated in that situation. And I knew how bad my PMS was when I was, in puberty. And I would have loved to have had these packets. Let's be real. Okay. So I remember what that felt like, just being almost like insane, and you couldn't even stop yourself. Like, you're just yelling at your dad or you're yelling at your mom, and you shouldn't be doing it, but you can't help yourself. Yeah. So anyway, I asked her, I said, okay, here's the deal. Take an adrenal health packet, go to your room, find yourself a new attitude. And when you're ready, come on back out. Right. So she came back out. She's like, I'm really sorry. I'm like, it's okay. I get it. We're just going to try to be consistent with this. So our kids basically took these every day during puberty, and we had literally no issues.
Whoa.
Yeah. One of our sons, and I'll tell you what's in it in a minute, but one of our sons, he came out one morning, grabbed a packet, went back into his room. 30 minutes later, he came out, grabbed another packet, went into his room. 45 minutes later, he came out, grabbed a third packet. I looked at him and said, rough morning, huh, dude? And he just stared at me, just kind of glared and turned around and walked away. I was like, all right, well, it was smart to not open his mouth. So, and then he came out, a little bit later, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel super off. And he goes, I feel fine now. And I was like, perfect. So have a great day, that sort of a thing. So you can't OD on this stuff because it's whole food nutrition. So it's not like they're taking some mind altering drug that's going to do something terrible to them,
Yeah.
So the Adrenal Health Packet contains Cataplex ACP, which is whole food nutrition that contains like higher doses of vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin or factor P. So you can go do a little bit of research on that. And then it also has Adrenal, which I give for a lot of reasons, but basically it's nutrients involved in adrenal health and neurotransmitter production. So with anxiety, especially, Adrenal is a lifesaver. It supports the adrenals amazingly. In fact, I had a patient who backed over her neighbor taking her boys to school one day, and the woman didn't survive. And she came into the office just shaking and freaking out, which I think that was an absolutely appropriate response, and said, I didn't know where else to go. And I said, that's okay. So I literally started giving her 10 of them. Now the tablets are bigger, but these were when they were smaller. So it's not the same, but it's probably less than half of this amount. But I gave her 10 Adrenal, waited 10 minutes, gave her another 10 Adrenal, and waited 10 minutes, gave her another 10 Adrenal, waited 10 minutes. We did this until we got to 80. And she was finally not completely shaking inside and freaking out and crying. And I said, okay, so this week, every day, you're going to take 80 every day. I don't care how you split them up. Next week, you're going to do 70. The next week, you're going to do 60. And we're just going to keep decreasing it from there. But it kept her off of any kind of pharmaceuticals, which could have increased her risk of suicide or anything else. But she felt terrible. And I don't think that it was never determined whether the woman actually had collapsed behind her car or whether she actually... So I'm not getting into that, so I don't want to misspeak and have something pop up. But that was my understanding back then. So the Adrenal, what I'm saying is, like, there's no real toxicity level for that from what I've seen. And in fact, there was a large bottle that a patient bought, and she opened it up, her phone rang, she left it on the counter, went over to grab her phone, came back, and the bottle was empty because her dog knocked it off the counter because it smelled so good, and ate every single tablet out of it. And she freaked out and called me and said, do I have to go get his stomach pumped? And I said, no, he's just going to sleep really well, and he wasted like $50 of your money. I don't know what to tell you. So the next day she called me, she goes, he slept better than he's ever slept. I go, you think? So, and it's not like, it's not a suppressant. It's nothing. It's literally nutrition to support those adrenal glands. So it's amazing. Adrenal is absolutely amazing.
I have something I want to insert really quick here. Many moons ago, you had told me one of our cats has really bad separation anxiety and just anxiety in general. And so you said, put her on one Drenamine a day. And she's now 10. She gets one a day. It's the bigger ones now, of course, not the little ones, but I don't even know if I take her off it, how she'll be, but she sleeps and she's not anxious and she doesn't howl when I go out in the garage and I'm gone for 2 seconds or whatever. And it makes a huge difference in her separation anxiety from me. It really does.
Well, and it does. It helps. I mean, it helps support the adrenals of people who tend to have anxiety. And I've also found that for like a lot of people since COVID have had POTS, and it's a positional orthostatic tachycardia. So the heart rate goes up when they change positions and basically can end up passing out. And so the Drenamine can help tremendously. I've always had low blood pressure. And there isn't much for low blood pressure in the world. There's a lot for high blood pressure. They got 6 of them for you if you need, all at the same time.
Yeah.
For low blood pressure, there's really nothing, but Drenamine has worked tremendously for me for low blood pressure. And so that's usually a sign of chronic adrenal stress. And my childhood was great. I just put a lot of pressure on myself. And so I'm obviously chronically stressed and trying to be the great parent and the great wife and the great doctor and the great everything. We wear too many hats.
Yeah.
So the Drenamine literally is like, hey, calmate, like calm yourself down. And anytime I'm feeling some anxiety, I'm just like, okay, I haven't taken enough Drenamine. I'll take a little bit more. So it works really, really well.
Yeah.
For supporting those adrenal glands, which the adrenals also produce progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. They also produce cortisol, they produce hormones. So that will also help balance those out gently without giving you hormones. The other one is Paraplex, and that is some, I believe, pituitary nucleoproteins and nucleotides and stuff. And so that will help a lot. Yeah, it's got pituitary and thyroid and stuff, and it's like a combination. So I give those to teenagers. I give those and then I tell the parents, I'm like, look, if they're a little sassy, have them take another packet, you know? And he does. But that's why my son, he would grab another packet when he was feeling like, I'm not going to be okay, you know, that sort of a thing. So it gave them a little bit more control of what to do and how to manage things when things didn't feel like they could manage life.
Sure.
So on teenagers these days, I mean, we've done a pretty good job with social media with our kids, but I don't care how hard you do this or how much you do, you know.
How much policing or control or
it's there. It's there. I thank God every day I wasn't born in this generation, because I mean, our lives were awesome.
Yeah.
And everything that we did was not recorded to be used against us later, either in the social media court, right, of everyone judging you. But I just think the stress, you know, 20 years ago, a 12-year-old didn't have the kind of stress that they have now.
No.
And so there's just so much coming in all of the time, and all the pressure and the new this and the new challenge and the new this and the clothes, and you got to buy this. And I mean, just so much input. So this really does calm the nervous system down enough, and it helps support their bodies so that they can produce the hormones, and makes all of our lives a lot easier. So female endocrine packets for those of us women who need to get those hormones under control a little bit, gently, naturally, just by feeding the body proper nutrients. And then for the kids and husbands, and even some of the adult women, adding an extra adrenal pack may actually be really helpful too. So you can combine them, you can do whatever, but those two are brilliant packets that Standard Process has managed to put together so that those of us can handle things a little bit more.
Yeah, the adrenal packet, I've been on it before. My mom's on it, my sister's on it. Amazing. Definitely feel the difference without it. 100% feel the difference without it. So yeah, I can personally say that it's amazing. And I think, yeah, they did an excellent job, to your point, with the formulation and just, yeah, what they just chose to put in both of those packets. Yeah, absolutely incredible. So
yeah, and they didn't put a bunch of extraneous other things. The female endocrine packet probably has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things in it, maybe 7 pills, and it's not big, huge capsules either. So that's the brilliance of it, is that they're not gigantic. And then the adrenal health packet probably has 2, 3, 4 things in it probably. So very easy for the kids to swallow. And like I said, it's amazing. And then if they need a little bit of extra Drenamine, you could do that, or give them another packet and see how that balances out. But
yeah,
and I'll tell you what else. Like, I can't even imagine having three, almost four teenagers in the house at the same time with a perimenopausal woman. Like, this is the only reason everyone is still alive. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Dr. Jen. This was very educational, informational. I think all kinds of people are going to get value from this because you've addressed two huge segments of the population who could use this to help them
well,
balance.
the husbands also, the husbands
Yes.
need their wives and their children to do this so they don't come home to you. So you're welcome, husbands. No.
Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Join our school community if you haven't before. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.